All right, guys, so what's going on? Gaston right here, and this is a live stream. Today I am going to be editing a picture with you, and this is also my very first stream. Upon request, you guys wanted me to do a video about my skin retouching techniques, and today I have, I think, the perfect image for Halloween. So this is not going to be a super in-depth tutorial, but it's going to give you a good introduction of some of the tools that I use in Photoshop and also some of the basic techniques. Now, this is going to be saved in the tutorials category right here in the YouTube channel, and I'm planning to add on more specific videos about skin retouching. So make sure to, number one, interact in the chat and suggest any of the topics that you may want me to talk about skin retouching, but also, come back frequently as I'm going to be adding more issues to the category. So let me know if you guys can hear me. Hey, what's up, man? So today I'm actually using the A6600 to stream. I'm using Elgato capture card, and let's actually swap to the screen that we're going to be editing today. So this is what we're going to have today going on right here. Let me actually make the screen a little bit smaller so you guys can see everything I have. So I'm also need to see this. There you go. Let me actually close the screen right here. So forgive me if I'm taking forever, guys. This is my very first live stream. I figured this out, like a couple of hours ago. All right, so this is the image that we're gonna be no, this is not the image, actually. This is Lightroom. Let me see here, Photoshop. There you go. So this is one of the images that we're going to be editing today. As a matter of fact, it's going to be the only image that we're going to be editing today, because I really want to make sure that, I give you guys the most for your bang. So I'm not going to spend a lot of the time, and like I mentioned before, I am going to making subcategory videos for the specific aspect. Now, skin retouching is not just going Photoshop, pop the healing brush and start, brushing away. Just simply doesn't work like that. Now, if you want to follow this tutorial, one of the things that I recommend that you guys get is a Wacom board with one of these pens. There are many different sizes to choose from. Now, this one is the Intuos that costs about $99. So it's one of the cheapest ones, small. You can see it right here. And it's also wireless, and it's super thin. So it's great for transporting this to events. Now, let's go back right here to this photo, because the photo that you're seeing right now is a photo that it is edited right now. Now, let me show you the photo of right off the camera. This is the image right off the camera. Now, the reason why I chose this image is because there is not a lot of retouching to do. And you may think, well, but this is a skin retouching tutorial. Well, but what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be showing you the specific tools in this video. Now, this is the image that we have right now, and this is basically the end result. Now, when I actually zoom in, you're going to see some of the details that actually has been enhanced, in particularly the eye, and I also have colored the eye. Now, this is actually a big difference from this to this once you zoom in the image. So why don't we get started, guys? So what I'm going to do is I am going to basically make a duplicate. No, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to delete these layers right now. And actually, yeah, we're going to delete this layer, and we're going to start with the original file. All right, so this is the image at full size. The first thing that you want to do in Photoshop is to actually create a copy. So for that, we're going to hit Command J, and now we have a copy. So in the event that we mess up, we're going to be able to go back and, have a copy, a backup copy. All right, so one of the things that at a glance, you need to do is, first of all, start looking at the image and start looking for things that you may think that they are, completely off. In this case, there is something that pops, and this is actually a photo shoot that I shot yesterday for Halloween with a Sony A7C, by the way, but it is this discoloration here. She actually colored the hair there, and I want to color this area as well because I think it's going to look better. Now, there is some hair here that goes across the face. There's another one here. There's another one here. And as you guys can see, there's also a little bit of these freckles that you see right here, because I believe it's kind of like running makeup or something like that. And I think it's going to look better if we actually remove those and leave this, very clean. Now, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, this this portrait doesn't require a lot of skin retouching because, you know, she's got a lot of makeup, it's Halloween, and it's supposed to be scary. So if you have a lot of details on your face, even better. Like these veins right here, actually, they look really, really scary. But we're actually gonna clean the eye, and the eye is something that I'm gonna do a tutorial specifically for that. But why don't we actually start by, you know, telling you a little bit about the tools that I like to use, guys. All right, so let me see. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, that's good. Let me make it full screen. I think that's going to be a little bit better for you guys. So there you go. Let me actually check if we're streaming okay here on YouTube. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's actually start. So the first thing that we're gonna do is anytime that you wanna zoom out to full 100%, hit Command 0 in the Mac or Alt 0 on a PC. Now, one of the tools that we're gonna be using is the healing tool. And the healing tool is a very popular tool. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there are blending modes right here. And understanding how to use the blending mode is gonna give you the utmost realistic result in your editing. The other tool that we're going to be using a lot is this one right here, which is, what is that one called? Let me actually hover over. The one is the brush with a little drop. Now, if you don't see it, you can actually find it here in the edit toolbar. And by the way, guys, I recommend that you guys have the latest version of Photoshop. So if you haven't updated, feel free to update. So you can actually edit this. Well, I think we have a bug right there. There you go. Edit bar. So if you don't have it here, you can always drag it from this list, you know, to this one, and that's how you're going to be able to have, you know, the three brushes in that place. Now, another way to actually access this brush is by clicking while pressing Option on a Mac. So you click and press while pressing Option, and they toggle, you know, they cycle through. So this is the one that we're going to be using the most, and this is the one as well. You know, we have several healing tools right there. This is the one that we're going to be using along with this one right here. And also remember about the blending modes. And as you see right here, we have also more configurations that we can actually click or enable in order to assist us with the skin retouching. Now, let me actually stop for a moment and say that one of the main issues that I see with a lot of people is that, you know, a lot of the times people ignore the you know, the additional options that you have for a tool, and those additional options can actually make your portrait look like garbage, look completely artificial, or make it realistic. So keep that in mind. All right, so if you have any questions, make sure that oh, the cursor was a little bit bigger. Sorry, man. This I'll figure it out for another video about the cursor. So hopefully you guys can see this. Now, let me actually switch screens right here. Boom. And let's go back to this one. And bear with me, this is my first live, guys. But anyways, so we're right here in Photoshop. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to tackle this additional hairs that are running across the face. And they're kind of like bothering me right now. You know, we could easily start by, you know, removing some blemishes off the skin. But I just want to use this and show you the first tool that we're going to be using, which is going to be the healing tool right here. And I want to show you the differences because right now I am going to be changing to the what's it called? This guy right here, the little pen. All right. So this tool right here actually automatically samples skin to let you retouch. But I'm actually going to zoom in really close. And this is going to be something that zooming in and zooming out is something that you're going to be able to do, or you have to do depending the situations. It is not recommended that you actually edit zoomed out all the way or zoomed in all the way, because a lot of the times you can be carried away, and when you zoom out, you realize that you made a lot of mistakes. So get used to zooming in for certain things and zooming out just to make sure that everything looks good. All right, so right now this tool is giving me a pretty okay cloning. But if I zoom even more, you can, and hopefully you guys can see, right over here the sampling is not actually looking realistic, and it's changing the texture of the skin. And you're seeing this window pop up because I'm not used to use this tool at all. I actually use this one, which you can access by, option click in here. And they're very similar. One has this little thing over there, and this one is just called the healing brush tool. The other one is the spot, right? So we're gonna switch to this one because this one is gonna give you much control than the other one, and I'm actually gonna undo that. And now by pressing Option, or I believe it's Alt on the Windows, you can actually select an area to clone from. So you always want to clone from an area that is going to look similar to the continuation of this line. So I'm going to clone, click right there, and now we're going to be sampling from there. And as you guys can see, the cursor is following me, right? So this is going to be easy. Now, look at this. Now the sample is all the way up there, but I'm actually brushing right there. And this is time for me to actually press Alt or Option again, tap in this region, and sample once again from there. You don't want to start sampling from the first place, or if the cursor actually, is not parallel to the sampling point, you always want to be very, very aligned with it, or at least in most situations, to get the utmost realistic sampling. All right, so that's fine for now. We're going to sample right here, and we're going to sample right here. So I don't know if I'm going to do this video completely because, by the way, I just wanted to figure it out, this streaming thing, because before I used to use another software, but if I happen to want to finish this, that's going to be good. And if not, we're just going to do it in chapters. Anyway, so it's very late right here in Miami, by the way. Now, there's another hair here that, if I zoom out, we can always toggle back and see what we have done so far by simply clicking on the eye while holding Option or Alt and actually revealing the original layer and clicking again to actually see what we have done. So we could actually remove this as well and go like so. And again, as you guys can see, every time that you see me stop is because I'm actually resampling from a different region. So right now I'm clicking there and I'm resampling, resampling, resampling. Now this is actually pretty intuitive. Now you're gonna see that we're gonna run to probably a problem right here where we wanna remove this hair from here, but we also have the red diamond right there. And using this tool a lot of the times, let me show you, you create I'm gonna exaggerate this, but as you can see right here, we have created kind of like a smudge because both colors have actually overlapped. The red color and the tone of the skin had overlapped. And that happened, I'm actually undoing, because we are set up to the normal mode as a blend mode. Now, this is where blend modes become really handy, and I love using blend modes. And one of the ones that I use the most is going to be the lighten mode. Because the lighten mode, what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to light up darker areas. And let me actually pause for a second here to talk to you guys. And where is the OBS thing? Here we go. Boom. So one of the things that this blend mode does, it actually lightens anything that's darker. And a lot of the time, blemishes, pimples, and stuff like that, they're very noticeable because of the shadow that they create, the contrast between light and, because they are like usually bumps or little dings on the skin, little gouges on the skin. It will create that contrast from light source projecting shadows. So with this tool, you're going to be able to actually remove blemishes with a blend mode and actually achieve a very natural looking editing. So let's continue. All right, so remember what I mentioned before, that using the normal, we got a smush. We still get the smush right here, but we can actually go smaller right now and basically affect only the darker area. And because the hair is dark, look what happened right here. It's just very natural. It kind of like continues it. Let me actually do it like this. There you go, and you can resample. Now, as you have seen right here, we actually have created kind of like a little mark that we can now go back to the normal mode and enhance and basically hide. Now for here, I can use the normal mode, no problem. All right, so this could actually take me the whole day, but I'm not gonna continue showing you me removing the hair. So we're gonna move on right now to some of the blemishes so you guys can understand how blending modes actually work right here with a heal tool. So let me see. Oh, change it up, sorry. All right, so here we go. So right now we have right here this little blemish on the skin. And like I mentioned before, blemishes are very noticeable because of the shadow they cast. So right here, she's got kind of like a little indentation on the skin. Over there, like a little scar. And obviously, she's very young, so she's got no wrinkles whatsoever. But wrinkles are also visible because of the shadows in between wrinkles. Now, let me actually do a little example right here. And let me sample this. The blending mode is going to be normal. And I'm going to be sampling from there, right? And I hope you guys can see. I'm going to make the screen a little bit bigger. So we can use the normal mode, and as you guys see, it's okay, it's fine. But when you start sampling with a normal mode and you have a lot of different samples in different areas, you may actually get a funny look when you zoom out and you start seeing, you can see right there, you start seeing discoloration, or you start seeing that the texture actually is a little bit missing right there. And this is the reason why I'm going to undo it. This is the reason why I like to use the lighten mode in this tool, because it is only going to affect what was in shadow, therefore not affecting the texture as much as I use the normal mode. And there you go. So like for example here. All right. Now, an area where you're going to be, you're going to actually take advantage of this tool is going to be in the eye. And in the eye, we are going to also benefit from this tool. And a lot of the times, a combination of the different blending modes. So let's actually start with the normal mode. And let's actually start removing some of the veins. All right. So remember to sample, click and sample from a point that it's kind of like a good area to heal from. So we're gonna do this one right here. We're gonna remove this. And every time you see me lift, when you see this appear, is because I'm sampling a new area. Now, remember pressing Control Option or Control Alt on the PC. You can actually increase or decrease the brush by sliding to the side and making the brush harder or softer by sliding up and down. So that's going to be a very handy shortcut. All right. Now, a lot of the times, it's best to actually go super small with a brush and only affect the blemish area than actually get a huge brush and start affecting colors that you are not intending to target. So make sure that your brush size is always equivalent to kind of like the blemish size, right? So right now we have cleaned up this eye, but look at this one right here, before and after. Sorry. This is before and this is the after, right? So what we're going to do right now in this other eye, we're going to be using the blending mode lighten. And with the lighten blending mode, instead of actually going over with a new sample, what it's going to do, the sample is going to be applied to darker areas. And because this vein right here are actually darker than the rest of the eye, the lighten blending mode a lot of the times is much more realistic, and it leaves less smudges in the area. Now, one of the things that you want to do with an eye is you want to make sure that you don't create discolorations, because an eye is a sphere, right? Kind of like a sphere. And when you start adding miscoloration, discoloration, start looking like the eye is actually dented, and that looks super, super fake. And actually not pleasing. So keep that in mind. Now, remember, with this mode right now, with the lighten mode, you may find that at times, you may have a better luck than actually using the normal mode. And ideally for the eye, I always try to target the blending mode lighten first, because I find to get better results and get a much more realistic retouching. As you guys can see, I can actually go like this more aggressively, and I'm not creating smudges of color on the skin. Whereas if we flip to the normal mode and we go, for example, there, you start creating this type of things. Obviously, I'm exaggerating it to show you the gesture, but these tools don't behave exactly the same thing in every single picture. Now, I know that a lot of people get frustrated because what works for one picture, then it doesn't work for the other one. And this is the reason why understanding blemishes is super, super important. Now, let's actually take a look at the eyes, the before and after. Boom, boom. So with one tool, we actually have removed all the veins from the eyes. We still have some here. We still have some stuff there. We're going to take care of that in just a moment. But that is the basic removal. Now, when you're doing eye retouching or skin retouching, you don't want to remove completely everything, because a lot of the times, you start kind of like making the image, changing the image, making it not so realistic. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you may want to leave some natural blemishes that makes a person human. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, so we're gonna continue to do this here, and I'm using the same tool, removing some of the removing some of the hair that is not supposed to be there. And right now, a lot of the times you gotta go back and do, and there you go. And again, I created that smudge right there that I don't want to. Now, see this smudge that I create when it comes very close? There are several ways to actually mitigate that. And the easiest way to do is to actually change the blending mode to replace. What replace is going to do is kind of like similar to a clone tool. Similar, not exactly the same, but basically copies a sample and pastes it over. Now, you got to be very careful with this one, because if the lighting of the sample is different from the lighting of the area that you're going to apply, then you are going to get a complete, you're going to see the modification of the area, but don't worry about it. So what are we going to do right now? As you see right now, we're going to go back to normal, and we're going to smooth that out with the other blend mode. Not so much. There you go. And now, using two blend modes, we actually mitigated that area. Now, let's do exactly the same thing here. I'm going to switch back to replace mode, and we're going to try to paste over. And you have to be extra careful when you use the replace tool, because you really have to choose a sample that looks close to the area that you intended to apply it on. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, a very undesirable result. Now I switch back to normal mode, and I actually blend what I did before. So you get a gesture. Do it here too. Now I can actually spend some time in fixing the hair all across this image. If you guys have a question, drop a comment down below and I'll answer. So I'm going to continue with this and narrate what I'm doing. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I am going to increase the size of my brush, because, I have more room right here. And every time that you see an undesirable result, stop what you're doing and go back and resample, because a lot of the times, you're not picking the color from the right area. Now here again, we're going to come across the same issue that no matter what I do, I'm going to get some of that black actually bleeding out. And this is why I'm in the normal mode. I'm going to switch to the replace mode, and I'm going to sample very close from here. And now I'm going to do this. And I'm going to also clone over the prior cloning. And I'm doing this only just to get around this and not get that weird effect that we got before, where we got some of the black bleeding into the skin, and we don't want that. So this is with the replace tool. You know, you have to be really careful. Then we're gonna switch back to normal mode, and we're gonna smoothen all around just to make sure that all the tones, you know, look even. Like for example, there and there, sampling from there. A lot of the times, you know, a lot of Command Z here. You know, you're gonna actually go back and forth a lot of the times. All right, so look at that and look at that. Right. Let's actually do this one right here. Once again, over here, it looks like we can use the normal mode, no problem. And always try to be next to the line that you're intending to sample. Let's go here, and I'm actually shifting away from the red now because I don't want to sample the red. And once again, you know, I got that smudge of the red, so I'm going to switch back to replace, and I'm actually going to come close and replace it. And over there, go back to normal. And if I need to smooth in something else, boom. Now, using the normal and the replace blending mode, I was able to mitigate that overlapping of tones. I'm gonna do the same here using the normal mode. All right, so we could also now go and try to repair some of these freckles, if this is a blemish or not, but I'm going to take it as a blemish. We're going to be using the normal mode. Now, look what happened when I actually switch to lighten. I can actually target them with a lighten. Why? Because they are so black that they're very dark. So Photoshop is going to apply the retexturing or the resampling right on the darker area. And because there is a lot of contrast between the skin and these little black dots, by being in the lighten mode, I'm not distorting any of the texture from around you know, these black dots right now. So every time I hit a new one, I resample from an area close to it. But you know, this gives you a pretty realistic look when you look at it. I'm not going to remove every single one of them. I just want to show you a little bit. And also I'm using this video just to try to figure it out how I'm going to structure my tutorials in the future. Alrighty. So we could probably fix some stuff here, 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 and here. Let me actually go back and make sure that we're streaming, that we're still, yep. So, all right. No, this is not Lightroom, guys. This is actually Photoshop. I'm actually reading the text right now, the chat. You don't use Photoshop? Ooh, that's good. Yeah, this is going to be for photo retouching. You know, there's no better tool than Photoshop to do so. You could do it in Lightroom, but Lightroom a lot of the times, you know, becomes very, very slow. And the more you add, you know, retouching points, the slower it gets. Now, Jimmy Old Pasqua said, why use that tool instead of the stamp? I'm new to Photoshop app. The stamp tool actually basically samples something and pastes it over, and there's not much control. There are some blending modes, I believe, but this tool is actually smart. This tool applies the sample to the area while analyzing the area and applying it in a way that it looks like it continues with the texture of that area. Now the clone brush, for example, is just, you know, simply cloning from one place to the other and disregarding texture, disregarding everything. Where you clone, it's just a copy and paste of something onto something else. Now the healing tool, the heal brush tool, is very, very smart. So, and the fact that you have all these blending mode makes it even easier. Alright, so what else we're gonna do here? Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I am going to show you guys how I do my frequency separation, and chances are that I'm gonna redo this video, but since you guys are sticking around, to this video, I'm going to show you the process of frequency separation. So let's say that this one is our final image and we're happy with the skin retouching. Now what we're going to do is create one, but first I want to show you that I have actions created for frequency separation, and these actions, they are named with different pixel numbers, and I'm going to explain to you what that means. Now we're not going to be using my my actions. I'm probably going to put them for download at some point, but we're going to create it from scratch. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to duplicate this layer that we have selected here, and you're going to do that by selecting Command J on the Mac, and it creates a new layer, or you can actually go and do that as well. You drag a layer onto the plus and it creates a copy. Now we're going to call this layer color, because this layer is going to contain the color, and then we're going to copy and duplicate this layer, do that, and we're going to name this one texture, right? Now all these layers are basically exactly the same thing, right? So this one is the color and this one is the texture. What you're going to do is you're going to turn off the texture layer so you can see the color, and we're going to apply motion blur. So what you're going to do, I'm sorry, Gaussian blur. So we're going to go to blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're going to apply blur. Now this is actually very important because you are going to be applying blur based on several factors. Number one, the resolution of the image in megapixels. Number two, the size in reference with the size of the canvas of the picture. So what I mean is this picture right now probably takes 30% of the image. Now if this image would have been, you know, the person standing up, the face would have been a lot smaller, therefore all the details would be compressed. Now the amount of blur that you're going to apply here is in reference to how much resolution you have in the details. So keep that in mind. You know, she's pretty big right here. Her face is pretty big, and it's basically what it contains, most of the features and all around her. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and start increasing the blur until you see some of the texture go away by right before they completely disappear and it turns into something like this. Obviously we don't want that. So we want to be able to tell the image, and we want to be able to also see that our texture is being kind of like smoothened a little bit. Now this is trial and error, and this is the reason why I have different megapixels for the frequency separation. Now this number entails how much blur in pixels I apply to an image. So because one number doesn't apply to all the images, I have created those standard ones for me that work pretty good. I think that 9.9 is actually okay. You know, we have some of the details of the skin blurred, but at the same time, you know, the image is not completely blurred. You're going to have to try this yourself. So I'm going to show you how to gauge that. Now, remember the texture layer. Now, if I enable this layer was kind of like the same image as before, you know, retouch. So you're going to select that layer, you're going to go to image, and you're going to go to apply image. Now, what you're going to do is, number one, you're going to select your color layer. Then you're going to go in blending mode and you're going to switch that to subtract. Then what you're going to do right here in scale, you're going to put 2, and the offset is going to be 128. Let's see, that was 2 or 1. There you go. 2, yeah. All right, so let's do it again. Let me actually undo, go image, because I use my actions, I don't go back, I kind of like forgot. The scale is going to be 2, opacity is going to be 100%, we're going to switch this to subtract, and you're going to choose the color layer. And then the offset, you are going to type 128. Now this setting is going to be always the same no matter, you know, what kind of image you have to adjust. Now, see right here we can start seeing a little bit of the eyes, and we see a little bit of the color as well. Now the goal in here is not to bring a lot of color, and the reason why is because the more color you bring, then the less we're going to be able to save or smoothen some of that texture. Let me explain that in just a moment. All right, so once you have this already done, the step, what you're going to do is you're also going to change that blending mode to linear light. And when we do that, basically we get the image the way it's intended to be, right? But you have to be in linear light. If you choose overlay, it just doesn't work. If you choose screen, doesn't work. Linear light is the kind of like the only one that works for this situation. Now, if I undo it, I still get the blur layer down below. Now, with this layer selected, we're gonna click on this other layer. As a matter of fact, we're gonna uncheck it right now. We're gonna click on the color layer and we're gonna work on this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna zoom out a little bit and see the areas that we consider that we have blemishes or that we need to repair. And for that, we're gonna choose this tool. It's called a mixer brush tool. You can access this by pressing B, as it says right here. If you press B, you access that tool. And if you don't have it, remember, you can always add it from there. So this is the mixer tool. Now the mixer tool also has some settings, and a lot of the times I think these are the settings that come from default from Photoshop, and actually they work pretty good for me. So you want this to be at 10%, the wet, the load at 5%, the mix 50, the flow 14% or around 10%, and this goes at 10%. And if you hold up, it tells you right there what it does. Set smoothing for stroke. Let's do it again. Use our higher values to reduce the shakiness of a brush stroke. So again, with this, you can play around, on your own time, but this is pretty much what I've been using. Now, the way this tool works is by kind of like painting with wet paint and blending different colors, like oil painting and smushing the colors together and blending them together. Now, there is a mode or there's a technique for frequency separation that entails you actually selecting areas of the skin and blurring it. I used to use it like that before, but I don't do it anymore because it creates completely super unrealistic results and you lose a lot of the control. Now, with this tool, what you're going to do is you're going to sample skin, in this case, and you're going to reapply. Now, another thing that you got to keep in mind, and there are a lot of settings right here, but a lot of things that you can keep in mind is that you also have more options right there. I leave it in moist. This is what's working for me. This is kind of like a complex tool like to study, but it works really good. Now, the reason why you want to use one of these is because this one actually has, I believe, 1,000 and something levels of pressure. Therefore, it's going to allow you to actually brush it away, kind of like if you're using a pencil on paper. So it gets darker or it gets stronger as you press more or less. So, and for that, we also have modes right here that if you press it, I believe that I always use it like that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in a little bit here. And right over here, I see a little bit of kind of like discoloration, and it feels that this needs to be closer to that tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample from here, and then I'm going to brush away right there. And then I'm going to sample from there and kind of like mix the colors, start mixing the tone. So I'm going to do this really quick, guys. And every time you see this icon pop, that means that I'm sampling from that region and then painting. So right over here too. Right over here, this doesn't look like it belongs there, so we're gonna mix it, mixing it up. Now I'm gonna zoom out just to tell a little bit better. I see some blemishes right there, so I'm gonna sample from here and brush it away. Now you wanna brush lightly. You don't wanna be very aggressive, and you also wanna change the size of your brush, according. So like for example here, this area, I think that I'm gonna make my brush very soft and larger a little bit more. So I'm gonna sample from here and paint away. I'm gonna sample from here, and then I'm gonna sample from this side. So for example, right here, we have shadows and lighter color right here in the midtones. So I could actually sample from here and go in this direction, but if I do that, then I'm killing the shadow. So I'm gonna undo that, see that? So what I do is I work in small regions and resample to kind of like connect. And one of the secrets of this technique is not to kind of like disrupt the transition of color, right? You just wanna enhance it, but you don't wanna disrupt it. So what I'm gonna do right now is sample from here and brush in this direction. And that way, I'm gonna make it, actually I'm gonna uncheck that. And actually I am going to blend them. right? So it's kind of like blending paint. So if you're an artist or you have used brushes before, it's kind of like the same, you know. Even the way that I'm brushing away on my pad is also very, very similar, like the way I would do it on paper. All right, so there you go. Let's do a little bit here, 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 here. I'm gonna sample this color. Now, because this is live, I cannot fast forward, but you guys can see that I'm actually sampling from different areas all the time, and that's very important, guys. Don't to sample one time and try to do the entire face, because it's not gonna look right. Now we're gonna back off a little bit once again, and I see now that I need to even out here, here, and here. Maybe here. Now it's really easy to overdo it with this tool, so you have to be really careful. Now I'm working on this shadow, and here and here. Let's see. All right, so we're gonna enable the top layer, and now I want to show you what we have done and what we had before. It's very subtle, but look at this area right here. This is retouched, this is untouched. Retouched, untouched. Now what I do once I corrected generally the color layer, then what I do, enable the texture layer. Now this is very important. We still selected under color. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna paint under the texture layer, but with the texture applied, because a lot of the times, you know, you can see that very well if you have it in that, you know, if you have it turned off. Okay, but it's a lot easier to do it with that turned off. So, you know, first start with this unchecked and do what your eye tells you that is off, and then enable the texture layer with the color layer selected and work on the color layer. Now, it is very important that you don't have sample all layers, because we don't want to sample texture. We want to only sample color. So this must be like that, disable. What I can do right now, and this is awesome because right now you're gonna see how this paints under the texture. Look at that. I'm gonna exaggerate it. See, it kind of like paints under the texture. I'm gonna undo it. There you go. So right here I see something that doesn't look good. Now another thing that you can actually do once you're here, then you can actually go back, and after you have corrected the skin barely, go back to the texture layer and then choose the heel spot tool, and now you can only affect the texture. Let me actually show you this. Like if I actually change it to normal, you can actually see what the texture looked like, right? But because we're in linear mode, the texture became invisible. Not invisible, but actually it applied and subtracted to the color layer, so it looks like the original image. So at this stage, we can still make an adjustment and correct a lot of the blemishes. So for example, if I want to remove that piece of hair that's there, I know that this is going to rely mostly on the texture layer because I cannot see it there. Now you get it? That got lifted with a texture layer. So with a texture layer enabled, you can actually fix that, and basically works the same way as when we were repairing blemishes for the first time. I'm gonna switch to normal, and as you can see, it's working perfect. And I'm only working on the texture layer right now, while not actually distorting any of the color of the skin, basically the undertone of the skin. So this is very important, guys, because you don't have to, you know, go crazy with your initial retouching. You can always take your time. Let me actually pause to talk to the camera. Here we go. So yeah, don't go crazy trying to remove every single speck, every little pimple, every little pore, every little ding, every little scratch. Make sure that you work kind of like as close as possible as you can to get something that is pleasing to the eye. Because in this stage is where you're going to do a lot of the refinement, and you don't want to go crazy, because a lot of the time trying to go in the first level of retouching can actually result into a very undesirable result, you know, when you start like having a lot of correction and it looks very apparent. So save a little bit for this stage. All right, so let's go back to this. Yeah, if you guys want, I'm going to post this image so you guys can download it. That's great. All right, so what we're going to do right now is we are going to select color and texture. We're going to group it by Command G on the Mac, and we're going to create a duplicate of this, and then we are going to rasterize that folder into a single image. Right, so basically what I did right here is I converted the texture and the color into one solid image. So from here on, I can go and save, but remember that I told you that this was bothering me right here, that it is black. So actually, let me undo that. I'm going to delete it. Change my mind. I'm going to go back to the color layer, and I am going to undo that. Now, what I'm going to do here is in between the color layer and the texture, I'm going to create a brand new layer. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to be using the clone tool in this case, right? Why? Because I just want to sample some of this texture over here. I could also use the heal spot tool, but you know, the clone tool is actually more suited for this type of basically cloning. And I may end up doing a combination of both. Now I may go here and kind of like do that. There you go. So this is before and this is after. And now I'm going to apply the layer and see how the texture applied over that area that I'm actually going to hide it again so you can see how it looked before. This is the before and this is the after. Pretty clever, right? Just creating a layer and creating another layer to control that right there. With this, you could also even use this technique to actually create dodging and burning. You could do that if you want, but right now we're going to use it for that. Now we're going to close the folder and we're going to duplicate a folder, and we're going to rasterize that folder and now create an image from this. Now at this level, once you have the image flattened, you still can probably touch up, you know, additional minor things that you may have missed. And in this case, probably using lighten and normal is going to be the most common, at least, you know, in my opinion. Now, obviously, do this as a last resource because it is best to get it on the prior stage, you know, all the retouching in case, you know, you need to fix something. But right now we're actually cloning and we are going over the texture, whereas before we had the texture on one side and we have the color on the other. So there you go. So this is the image that we just created. We're going to come a little bit closer, and this is the image that we had before. Look at the eyes. Next time I'm going to be using an image with a lot of issues, so we can show you everything, guys. But this video can get like very, very long. Skin retouching is going to be something of several hours in order to cover, you know, everything that I want to cover. All right, so I'm going to show you one more thing right now, and this is something that I haven't seen many people doing it. You're not going to find a lot of videos how to retouch eyes in YouTube, and I'm like, you know what? I want to show you guys this because retouching eyes is a technique on its own, right? And one of the things that I want to do there is kind of like smoothing all those corrections. Yes, you know, we remove the veins, but if you look at it, the eye doesn't look that clean. And again, you don't want to look super clean, but it's, you know, sometimes you want to go for the Barbie doll look. Sometimes you don't. But the eye, the white of the eye is something like it really catches your attention when you look at the image. So I always try to do, you know, the best job possible. So what I do is I use the lasso tool right here, and we're going to select a feather of around 2. It doesn't really matter. 2, 1, 3. And we're going to select very close to the eye. And we're going to select all around there and try to actually come as close as you can from whatever is supposed to be the white part of the eye. Now let's go here, 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 and let's do that. Okay, you don't want the pupil to be selected. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a duplicate of this area. And for that, we're going to press Command J. And now, if I actually let that go, we have create a selection of the white of the eye. Right, so we have it in this layer. What we're going to do right now is we're going to blur this. So we're going to go to Blur, Gaussian Blur. And now look at the magic happen. We're going to go back to 0. And we're going to start adding blur gradually until we see something that we like. Let's actually zoom out a little bit. And it looks like 7. It's kind of like the happy moment there. Right, but we're not done yet. Obviously, you know, we apply blur. The blurring effect is actually leaking through the image. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to select the erase tool, and we're going to come closer to the eye and basically clean up any of the blurring that may have gone over the eye. And then we're going to clean up something because I see some of the eyelashes were affected. Now you may also want to increase or decrease this. Now in this area right here, I like to remove some and introduce a little bit of the vein because that's what it makes the eye a little bit realistic. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Delete a little bit of that, delete a little bit of that. Here, we're going to delete that a little bit. And now, I think you know, still look a little bit fake. But before we do an adjustment, what I want to do since I'm here, I want to control some of those red tones that we see. And it's making the eye still not looking where I want it to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the dodge tool. And then we're going to change the mode to midtone. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to light up these areas that in my opinion are a little bit darker. And what you're going to do is you're going to go with an exposure very, very minimal. So you're going to do this to clean up any of that excess of redness that may have been left from removing the veins. Now we're going to go back to the sponge tool. Now this tool, what it does, it desaturates. And as you can see, the flow is set up as 50. And we're going to also try to desaturate some of the red. And look how cleaner that's starting to look now. Okay, you don't want to overdo it. You do little brushes, you assess, and then you continue. Now this looks pretty good, right? But I see right here, I'm going to go back with the dodge tool, that this is too dark. See that? Before, after. So I'm going to lighten it a little bit more. And maybe here too. And remember, my blend mode is, my range is midtones, okay? I'm gonna do that. There you go. Now what we're gonna do is we are gonna mix, oh, I see something here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna mix this eye layer, which is this one, let's name it eye white. And what you're going to do is you're going to decrease the opacity. I'm going to go aggressive. 100%, nothing. So we're going to decrease the opacity to a point where we see a little bit of that texture from before, but it's not so apparent. Usually I leave it around 75 or 80. And there you go. Now look at that. Now the good thing about this is that you can now control the eye on its own, and if you want to whiten the eyes even more, all you have to do is press Command L, and you can do it destructively or non-destructively, and play with the midtones, the highlights, and the darks on their own. And now we have made the eye a lot brighter. Before and now, before and now. Now if you compare this to this, look at the difference. I'm gonna zoom in. This was the before of the image. And this is the after. Very natural and, you know, very pleasing to the eye. And this is if we remove it. All right. So this is the image, guys. So this is my first stream, and probably I need to practice a little bit more. But I hope you had enjoyed it. Let me know. Let me read some of the questions now. Right here. There you go. There you go. All right, I'm going to read some of the question. Gotcha. I don't use Photoshop. Okay. Why use that tool instead of stamp? Already replied to that. Got it. Thanks. Can we have that photo so we can try to... Yes, for sure, guys. So, yeah. Basically, this is going to conclude today's tutorial. But what I'm going to do is probably tomorrow or during the week, I am going to set up an event, and I'm going to give you guys the tool so you guys can follow before this starts. Today I just wanted to do a test and see, you know, how this thing would do. But hope you had enjoyed it. Let me know if you wanted me to do more of this type of tutorials, and yeah, keep me posted. So guys, hope you had enjoyed it, and until then, see you in the next video. Take care.